Elliot teams up with Darlene to try and track Mr. Robot and trap Tyrell Wellick. But when Angela figures out what Elliot's been up to at E-corp, Tyrell decides Mr. Robot may no longer be needed. It's Mr. Robot, episode 3.3, metadata.par2.
Everything means nothing to me. Everything means nothing to me.
Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Mr. Robot. So yes, of course, spoilers, they are coming. Alright, so good episode this week. Tense, a lot of back and forth, a lot of cat and mouse, and of course identity issues, which are not an uncommon theme here in Mr. Robot. But let's start things off this week with our file type of the week, PAR2. That is a parity archive. It is used when you do file backups. Basically creates a copy of the volume so that if while recovering your data you have lost some volumes, you have sort of a tracer, you have a map to help find and recover those lost volumes. And that plays off in many ways kind of this week. We have, of course, the large picture. We have E-corp, who has, because of 5.9, lost a lot of their data, and they are in the process to try and recover all of that, which is what brings us to phase 2, which also is running into some errors this week as Tyrell discovers all of the work that Elliot has been doing to undermine all of the work that he has been doing. And now he's discovering that he's got a lot of lost volumes and information and is desperately trying to piece those together in a very tight time frame. And then from a personal standpoint, we have, of course, Elliot, who is kind of always lost a bit of himself, really trying to desperately pull him together, find those lost bits of himself so he can track Mr. Robot and try and stop him. And then you have Darlene, who in her own way is attempting to recover her own life that she has lost and is now sort of caught in the trap of everything that she has done with 5.9, as well as being trapped by the FBI to do things and probably cost her own family. So lots of recovery going on this week. And we kind of see the effect of Darlene's psyche really in the opening bit, which was a beautiful, I think, callback to Jules Winfield in Pulp Fiction, with Darlene asking for her wallet back. Well, it doesn't say bad motherfucker on it, but it does have a very nice Polaroid in it. Anyway, I just love the kind of setup of that, how she awakens and is able, just from the body language, to determine out who was the thief, who took her wallet, and just, again, pace it down really nice. This is why you do it. This is what you got. Just give it to me. And, of course, letting her have the actual wallet, the cash, if we look back to the Jules comparative, in the sense because she has cost them all so many things, which is kind of another kind of perfect New York bit right there, because she can go ahead and tell them exactly what she has done and no one's going to believe her. This would just be some crazy person talking crap on the subway, claiming to be a god and to have caused everyone's woes. So in some ways, while it's cathartic for her to have this sort of release, to face up, all she wants is the picture back. But sort of release of what she has done and what is she responsible for. It's in a way a completely safe environment where no one's going to believe her and there's not really going to be any repercussions. But that devil-may-care attitude actually helps Darlene. I mean, she's smart, and that's another kind of nice thing that we get to see is not only the kind of compassionate side, we see the side of Darlene that's really trying to make up for what she is, to try and find her way through it. But also her intelligence when she runs into Elliot in her apartment, and I love how Dom just walks out and gives the little, he's downstairs, don't blow it, don't look at me, kind of walk through, which is perfectly nice. I love how Darlene kind of encounters Elliot when he brings up the fact that someone had, bugged my computer and leads me to right here, how she throws back the whole duality of Elliot as a sort of defense. But again, the best lies are mostly truth, and I think the reality is this is a lot of truth for Darlene. Mr. Robot scares the crap out of her, certainly does not trust him at all, and has difficulty dealing with the whole Elliot and Mr. Robot comparative. She loves her brother, and she has done so much for him in the whole creation of F Society and the whole Act of 5-9. And yet, that dark side in him certainly terrifies the heck out of her. So I don't think she is being dishonest when she is talking about maybe a motivation for doing all of these things, just not letting the whole FBI bit go in. So it was, and I love that. And we do get to see a lot of the great relationship between Darlene and Elliot, how they are a fractured family, that really the two of them are all that they have left of each other. And yet, because of their own issues and fractured psyches, they can't always get along. I loved Elliot kind of apologizing to Darlene about how he's treated her, and they're kind of attempting to reconnect. Going back to Shayla's apartment there, all empty there, did bring a little tiny tear to my eye. Shayla, old drug dealer from season 1, Elliot's kind of little and a romantic connection, who of course died, was shot by the drug dealer. He got his back though. Anyway, that was kind of a nice little moment there. But we see, because of this brother and sister connection, Darlene is kind of the only one that Elliot can trust. He has Angela. Of course, he doesn't really know the dark side of Angela well. He will briefly, but not at this stage. So it was nice having those two together. I love the vengeance pact that they set up between each other too. That's kind of perfect. A whole revenge bit. Look, if things go in and things go dark and things go down, you revenge for me and I'll revenge for you if it goes either way. So again, it's nice and it's sweet, but it also in some ways brings up the reality of what Darlene is dealing with. Her attempts to grab that reality of life, that one idea of a life, as she has in a little conversation with Dom there at the end of the bar, just give me a drink, let's just have a normal girl-girl conversation. Because she knows at this moment, and she tells Dom, that everything is about to change. Now, she keeps talking about going to Budapest, and we have the little shot of her looking at the airline ticket and so on. It does seem to be that she might be taking off. But I think her statement to Dom is really true in however this lays out. Because if she takes off to Budapest, she's never going to be able to see her brother again. She's going to be able to run for the rest of her life. Certainly with Dark Army and such after. If she does work for the FBI and turns Elliot in, then she's going to lose her brother also, because he's going to be in jail. Even if she has immunity, as she says, Elliot will be one going to jail. Or if not, the fact that she betrayed him, she will lose Elliot from that point. So she knows no matter what her path is going forward, the normalcy that she wants in her life to try and recover isn't going to be there, and she is going to lose the one thing that really is what she has left, and that's her brother. Now, Tyrell in this episode really so different from what we saw last episode. Of course, that was the whole flashback where we see where he was during season 2. But now we have him actually dealing with Elliot, Mr. Robot, to try and continue phase 2. And tonight realizes that the dual side of Mr. Robot, the other part of Elliot, completely undermining him. Seeing his frustration was just classic, because you can see like at that moment that, oh my God, all this work that I've been doing, and Elliot has just been falsifying everything, just sending him on one wild goose chase after another, having Tyrell think that all of his work is being effective, and now realizes that he basically has a pile of empty boxes. Was just, a great moment. And seeing that light fall from his face when he looks over at Mr. Robot and Elliot, just the idea of like, we were supposed to be gods, and yet you fail. It was just, it was a beautiful kind of realization. And also kind of an interesting new step for Tyrell, because of course at this stage, now he has been doing so much work for Phase 2. I mean, the whole time that he was on that farm and moving things around and getting things shipped and re-archiving stuff and getting things prepped. And now in just the past couple of weeks, having Elliot go and just rip all of that out for him. I mean, you can see, you can appreciate his level of frustration. And the fact that this person that he had revered so much has been working against him this whole time. It's an interesting step for Tyrell to now suddenly take command of this thing that was never his. He just got tagged along. I mean, like Mr. Robot told him, it's like, I just thought that you would be useful for a month, that your crazy obsession would have a positive end. Now for the Dark Army, that does seem to be the case, because now knowing that you can't have Elliot anywhere near, that Tyrell's the one that's going to have to kind of take over things. Loved Angela's manipulations of Philip there. Was just perfect, just calling. I mean, really just shows how that relationship, which we saw so much of last season, continues on, where Angela just has this sort of command and power over Philip that he is willingly sort of released to her. Though in a way it's a mutual respect type of thing. She does talk about, it's a favor I will owe you. Philip's not just doing it out of the goodness for his heart. Kind of like White Rose, don't mistake his generosity for generosity. But I just loved how that bit, how she's just like, this is what I need you to do, and you're going to do it because it's the right thing. And he just goes, are you sure? Yeah? Okay. I mean, it's perfect. And it keeps things nice and simple. We don't have to have any unnecessary drama dealing with that situation. So now, of course, we have Elliot cinched out of E-corp, unable to do anything else, and really kind of the end of it, drugged and trapped over at Angela's apartment. But the other fun thing with this section was Irving. Irving's whole support. I mean, one, we have the little scene that he has with Angela where she is asking him if White Rose has shown him, and I'm assuming they're talking about the time machine or whatever device project that we haven't seen yet that White Rose is planning to use to do the whole change what happened back in the past. Quantum computer, actual time travel, we don't know what it is yet. But I loved Irving's response in that sense. I mean, everything that he does is really for encouragement. It's something that you can't really tell how much he is being truthful and how much he is just telling people what they need to hear. But I did like his comparative of saying, look, of how much things have changed over time, the technology of where we are now. You know, 100 years ago, you wouldn't even believe that these ribs could possibly be made. Well, you know, just over 100 years ago, we were still in horses and buggies. Cars had just started. You know, it was only 50 years ago that we landed on the moon. We've done an amazing amount of stuff in a short period of time. So I like that his response of, you know, I believe anything is possible. That's not wrong. But his motivation of Tyrell, I thought, was just so perfect. How Tyrell's like, we're supposed to be gods together. And Irving is just, well, you know what that means? You're the god, man. You were born for this. It is your destiny. It is the plan. It was just like, hoorah, hoorah. It was a perfect motivational speech. And I don't doubt for a moment that Tyrell's dead by the end of all this. Especially when he was asking about his wife and his kid. I mean, sure, it'd be nice to be reunited with his kid and he can go off to Ukraine and be all non-extraditing and stuff like that. But you just, you know, someone like that, Tyrell really has, at this point, set himself up as the center linchpin, which means he is already, and will continue to be, the perfect fall guy. So when this all goes down, a dead Tyrell, entirely possible. If not probable. Alright, some smaller points. The whole episode title, metadata. I loved Elliot's little discussion about that. It's not just the information. It is where it came from, where it has come from, where it follows, where it is right now. The context of that data is much more important or more illuminating at times as opposed to just what the data is. Also, I have to say, I did love that opening sequence. I always love it when you have episodes crossover on time where you see the time from one perspective, and then another episode or another time you see that exact same instance from the other perspective. So this is just really cool. We saw all of Dom's perspective of Elliot breaking into the apartment. Here, we're catching Elliot's side of things. So I always enjoy that. That Elliot hasn't turned everyone in because he, in a way, is still appreciative of what Mr. Robot is doing, that there is that internal part of him that can't walk away from it. Really good psychological insight into this. And also funny because ruminating on that point is what gave that opening for Angela to see what it was that Elliot was working on his computer, which is what ends up turning into her realizing and telling Tyrell all of what Elliot's been up to. So, in a way, that continual delay and appreciation for what Mr. Robot is doing continually allows Mr. Robot to keep doing what it is he's doing. The FBI raid that caught the masked F Society guy, yeah, you know, that's total red herring. That is just something set up for Dark Army to feed into the FBI and keep them busy. No relation to anything outside of that, which is why he's not talking. Loved Dom, especially did with her partner who's thinking, no, don't talk about White Rose. That's a myth. I love that Dom continues to push that. But her idea that anyone from Dark Army is caught kills themselves, well, that's only if their information isn't meant to be caught. Whereas for this particular individual, he was meant to be caught, meant to tie them up. If he dies, then they'll just keep digging in. If they're alive, if he's alive, they're going to waste time focusing on him. Yeah, I did love that little moment between Darlene and Dom at the bar. Darlene just trying to have a drink and a little just normal girl conversation, like a little bit of normalcy. It was cool, and a little insight into Dom. I appreciate at least that the only relationship in her life isn't her Alexa, which I was concerned about last week. Though another interesting commentary how, yeah, but a same-sex relationship still not necessarily a good thing in the eyes of the FBI. So extra complications in Dom's life, just a nice to have. Again, that little insight, that little human moment before we dive back into all of the Phase 2 drama. Oh, and Mr. Robot's line, never appeal to a man's better nature. He may not have one. Fair enough. Cynical, but not unfair advice. And Angela seeing Mr. Robot disappear to Elliot reappear in that moment, totally cool. I always love the back and forth. When we had Darlene looking through the eyepiece, and Elliot was coming out, she looks away and back, and it's Mr. Robot. I always love the changes when they switch between Rami Malek and Christian Slater. It always adds a cool element. But also I always appreciate Angela's approach, how she can tell just by the eyes, and she is the one person that can see the change and the difference. It was just a cool moment. All right, papers, records from 71 different buildings across the United States all need to be shipped to New York over the weekend so that Phase 2 can commence. Meanwhile, Mr. Robot has to keep Elliot at bay while trapped over at Angela's apartment, and Darlene. Oh, where is Darlene off to? Is she there to help out the FBI? Is she making that call, or is she taking the time to catch a flight to Budapest and get the hell out of town? Next week is going to be astounding. Now, this is the assumption that Phase 2 happens next week. From what we saw from the brief preview, it's definitely chaos. So do we see Phase 2 and the effects of it? Or are we going to do another flashback episode next week and maybe find out what happened during that week, those several days, while Elliot was unconscious and Mr. Robot was out and 5-9 occurred? That would be really exciting. I don't know what it's going to be, but it is a commercial-free episode next week. Very, very excited. I cannot wait. So, if you did enjoy this review, as always, share it. There's a share button, all social media. You can go ahead, tell everyone all about it. You can also hit the like button. Just let me know that you enjoyed it. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, you know I like them, down in the section below. Let me know what you're thinking about this thought. Where are we going? You think Tyrell's actually going to get his kid and hit through Ukraine? Because Joanna's not going to be there with him. And what do you think is the time machine that White Rose is designing right there? Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. Throw those down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. It's quick, it's easy, lots of reviews. You won't miss any of them. Do it by clicking this button right here. That's my face. And I'll throw up a couple of our latest reviews right here. You can check those out. All right, so that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.